Hi, everyone. Welcome to Summer Vision Night. If you're new to Zoom webinar, I just want to give you a quick note about what to expect and how this all works. There's a few people that you will be able to see and hear, and that is some of the leadership team at Cornerstone. These are the only folks that you'll be able to see and hear this evening. Everyone attending is in what's called view-only mode, which means your mic is automatically muted. No one will be able to see you or hear you. And it's not because we don't love you, but that's just the way this works. But you can ask questions. We would love for you to ask your questions tonight as we are going along. And how you can do that is if you go to the bottom of your Zoom window, there should be some controls or options that pop up, and there should be one that says Q&A. And if you tap that, there should be a way for you to type in your question. Now, how that works is when you type a question, the only people that will be able to see your question are the leadership team here tonight. No one else will be able to see your question unless it is answered. And then if it's answered, everybody will be able to see your question. And we'll have time for some Q&A at the end. We'll get to as many of those questions as we can. So if your question if we don't get to it, it's not because we don't like you or it was a bad question. It's just probably because we had a lot to get through and we're just doing our best. So Aaron.
All right, Tim, thank you so much. I want to welcome everyone. I'm really excited and humbled just to see that there's over 110 participants in this and that we get this chance for us to gather together during these times. Needless to say that these last 3 months have been incredibly interesting and that they continue to be. And we are grateful for this chance that we get to gather together for just a little bit, that it's not a service, but we get to gather together for 3 things: to regroup after we have been spread all over, that we get to reflect on what has happened, and we get to prepare. One of the things as a staff we are learning is that we don't plan anymore, we prepare, because things change so fast. And so we are learning to prepare, to do our best, to be flexible, and then to implement those things. And so it has been 13 weeks since I got a phone call from the elders on March 12th. We had a conversation. Brian and some of the elders said, hey, we're going to need to pause our services for 2 weeks. And so we made this decision to stretch and pause our services for March 15th and March 22nd. And we said we will be back on March 29th. 13 weeks later, folks, we are still living our online life. And so it has been a dance, and we have learned so much. And one of the things at Cornerstone I know that you know is we are incredibly professional. And the way that we handle ourselves is professional, and that we don't make mistakes. And so I wanted to show you, because many people are saying like, hey, obviously there's bloopers. And I just wanted to say, you know what? I want to show you a video of some of the behind the scenes so that you can see how polished and how professional our team at Cornerstone is. And so enjoy this video.
Called by God to be a source of help, love, peace, and it's gone.
You were getting faster.
Corrie ten Boom, the famous Holocaust survivor, once said, if you place the place of your greatest pain can become the source of your greatest blessing.
And I know for me, as we have said it, sorry, I can do it again. I hate the camera. Our leadership, I'm sorry. That was such a great word. No. Brian, great sermon, even though it's a really weird thing to say on camera.
I would like to go for the one take.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna give it 5 tries, and if we can't get it, then
I'm getting in 3. You'll also find resources like an app and then
Yeah.
I want to quit. I want to quit my job. I want to quit life. I want to quit Corona. I want to quit.
God, so much phlegm.
Good Lord.
Oh, friends, I hope that we can't see your reaction, but we have watched that video 100 times each, and there are so many more of those videos because we are so polished and professional at Cornerstone. I've shared in a message that, you know, in a lot of this, just the levity of it, that this has really taught so many of us so many things, and it's exposed the places where we're just not strong. And so, you know, back on March 12th, when we moved, that we had 2 days to move our entire presence as a church of connection and gathering and worship to online, we had to close the gap of like 20 years of technology and skill. And so we had a team and began to move our whole team from doing our live worship services at Cornerstone at South Lashley to moving them online. And it has been such an incredible learning experience. And there is not one individual that has not brought out their insecurity. But I love the fact of what the Lord has been teaching us in this, that though we are scattered all over the place, that we can still gather together for his glory and the good of others. And what this has brought is something that I believe is important, that, you know, virtual just doesn't cut it, but we want to have the ability to connect. And so we moved to an online presence. I want to thank our communication team who redid our entire website so that we would have on-ramps for people to be able to visit that. I also we have a production team that is led by John Stewart and Peter Hart. Ben Hockey is on that, Aiden Harbison, Cam Humans, and doing something that we have never done before, and now doing it, I think, incredible. And so we've been moving to having an online presence. And one of the ways that we're looking at this is we view this as our online campus. And this is something that we want to have for the future. And so the decisions we make now, we hope to have this for the future. But we honestly have been grateful for this opportunity and humbled by it. And it is something that we never expected, and that we don't take lightly, but we're grateful that we can view and connect through online mediums. And I'm gonna pass it off to Gene now, and he's gonna share a little bit about the things that have happened kind of from moving from online to outreach through Justice and Mercy.
All right, hi everybody. We've been working pretty hard to keep our website up to date with things that we're doing. I think we have a little screenshot of our current page and current outreach that we're doing through the Justice and Mercy. Let's get that up here, and you can see you know, we started early on in helping a couple of restaurants with giving them each a $4,000 gift to help the employees that they needed to furlough. And so that one of the restaurants was Old Santa Fe Grill in Louisville, and the other was Heffy's in Longmont. And they were really grateful to be able to do that. But then we started moving into helping particularly vulnerable communities with face masks. We got lots of requests. Right now, it's not too hard to get face masks, but the people that we're helping are not in a position to be able to afford to purchase face masks. So we've helped 2 senior living centers that are kind of low budget senior centers. One in particular that we're focused on, you can see that button on the left, Help Boulder Manor. Boulder Manor has unfortunately been in the headlines quite a bit in the last couple months because they have had numerous infections and numerous deaths in their facility. And we reached out to them, and they said they needed to have about 100 masks, and also they wanted us our people to see if they could send in some letters of encouragement. So we've been doing that, and also purchase some what they call airplane games. So the kind of games that you'd play in your seat on an airplane. The old analog style though, you know, little mini versions of games that you could play by yourself. That's been helpful. We just this past week, we got in a couple thousand, we had actually 2,500 masks. We gave 1,500 to Clinica. They don't have the budget to be able to afford this, and they were so grateful. It was amazing. We gave, we're going to give about 400 masks to El Paso to give into the Latin community, and then we've been helping with Uganda. You've heard us talk about how there is a crisis right now due to COVID-19. They were literally people that were starving, and they hadn't eaten in days. And so we sent some emergency funds to them. There's not a whole lot for you to do personally. Right now, the best thing you could do is help our COVID-19 fund so we can continue to do these things. As as organizations begin to open again and it's safe to be able to come alongside them, we'll start posting opportunities for that. But that hasn't happened yet. You can kind of imagine the communities that we're with right now. It's not really it's not accessible for us to get in and come alongside them to do anything. So we'll keep you posted on that, and it's awesome to be able to be a support. I'm telling you, Cornerstone has a great reputation in the city of Boulder and beyond, and it's because you guys always come through in times like this. You guys are amazing. All right, Brian.
Thanks, Gene. Brian Yost, the two of us can do a little update here. If I leave something out, you can jump in there. We want to just give you a little update about where we are financially before we start talking about summer plans. So we're wanting to update you on everything. And I also want to thank all of you guys for joining in. It's I think this is the largest attended, we don't call them members meetings anymore, but Zoom is the way to do it. We learned it after 20 years, so here we are. So the week after we initially shut down the services and we were starting to look at the news, and we saw this is going to be a big deal, we made some immediate cuts to our budget. And initially that was somewhere between 15 and 20%. And as time went on, we had to make some new increases so that we could staff and have the equipment for Church Online. So since March, we've had a 10 to 15% cut in our budget. We just feel like that's a prudent thing to do. Simultaneously, our giving has been very steady. So we want to thank you guys for your faithfulness. We've only seen about a 5% drop this last April and May compared to April and May of 2019. So with the cuts and the giving staying there, we're in a good place. Many of you are also aware of the PPP loans that came through the government. The church actually received one of those. And so we feel like we're in a good place, which is important right now because we're about to have some greater expenses that regard the building. And so, but we want to say thank you for your faithfulness. We actually continue to add new givers during this time, which is very encouraging, people believing in the vision and joining in. And so I want to thank you for that. Brian, leave anything out there?
No, I think you hit it all. We've just, as you said, it's been really encouraging to see how people have continued to be able to give during this time and keep us in a really healthy position. And we're excited. We'll share a little bit more later tonight about the building and what's going on there. So we'll get to that as well.
And as Gene said, we're working to be generous during this time as well, even beyond what we already have set aside in our Justice and Mercy budget and other things like our Agape Fund. And so there will be other things that come up. We're even exploring possibilities right now of trying to support this. We've actually, for a few weeks now, we've been trying to make connections with churches on the East Coast, churches that are lower income that were really decimated by COVID-19 and their people can't be together and they can't buy the gear that they need to do church online. And so we're trying to make connections, and your faithfulness allows us to just keep, pushing that limit. So I want to thank you for that. So that's been great. So that's an update there. And now we want to kind of shift gears and talk about what's coming up here in the months to come. As Aaron said, it's really hard for us to make definite plans right now, and it's hard to put dates with anything. So any date that we share, besides what we're going to share with phase one, is tentative, and all of that could certainly change. But I want to thank all of our small group leaders, whether it's women's ministry or fire group leaders or life group leaders who have stayed on facilitating community with their groups. So many of you know in the summer, our groups a lot of times take a break, and which we think is important. We think rest and pace is important, but we asked most of our group leaders back in May if they would consider continuing to meet with Zoom or as we're allowed to meet together in person, to safely do so, because we're really having to rely on really all of you, especially for the next 2 months, to facilitate that community, because we can't be together and we can't be together in large numbers. So I want to thank those small group leaders. We really, we couldn't have done what we've done without you, and we can't get through the summer without you facilitating community. And so for any of you that are doing that as well that we don't know about, we're grateful for all of that. As we think about our reopening, I'll let you know that I've been in several groups with other pastors from other area churches. And so we're sharing lots of information. We're trying to discern what we're hearing on a monthly basis from the state and all of those things. And we are in pretty close communication with the governor's office. They've done a really good job, especially the last month, of communicating with churches about guidelines for reopening. And so none of this is done in a vacuum, and there's lots of communication going on. So we want to, though, communicate value here, our values around how we want to reopen. And I can tell you that we're trying to be as prudent as we can, even though us as staff are eager to be together again. And it's not like we just have our job to do. When we sign up to do ministry, we feel called to people. And so it's been really hard to not be with you. And to not be with, small groups and individuals and the different ministries, and then all of us together on Sundays. And back in April, I was finding some comfort in Philippians chapter 1, because Paul was in prison writing to his church that he missed. And he said, God can account for me, that I'm missing you very badly, basically is what he said. And I know for all of our staff that that's how we feel, and our leaders, we really miss you guys. But saying that, we want to open in a safe, prudent way. And so, Tim, you can put up that slide with the values. So here are the 4 values that we're going to be using as we move through the different phases of our reopening. So there at the top, you see, we believe that the church should meet together. We think if the church is able to meet together, it should. It's a privilege. As Aaron said, nothing replaces in person. I mean, I'm grateful that we have the technology to do church online. I can't imagine trying to do this even 15 years ago. That'd be so hard. But we believe the church should meet together. I will never, ever say again, the large group gathering doesn't matter. That was wrong. I certainly do not believe that anymore. I will never say that again. So we believe that the church should meet together, and we're going to move in that direction. Second value is we are going to continue to submit to our public authorities. So we want to contribute to the public health and the safety of our congregation, and we are going to trust both the governor's office and Boulder County health officials on how to do that. I know that this is where there are a lot of different opinions, and there are different opinions even within our staff. I have my own opinion about the pace in which things are being reopened. My opinion doesn't really matter, because we just feel like this is an important way for us to demonstrate to our community that we're in this together. And so we want to continue to submit to those authorities. And I can tell you that this will, the conversation and the debate about this will only increase as certain counties open up more than Boulder County. And based on what we've seen in the last month or two, Boulder County's pretty cautious. And so we might be behind other counties just nearby us. And I can, as an example, this is further away, but for the last 4 weeks now, Mesa County's churches have been able to gather up to 175 people. And just this Monday, we were allowed to gather up to 50 people. So it's going to be different, but we will continue to submit to authorities. Aaron, you want to take these other two?
Yeah, just jumping off that before I go into those. I mean, one of the things that in all of this is, as we submit to authorities, one of the things that we are on the timeline of the authorities, but with that, we've decided to go, here's the values and how we're going to make decisions. One of the things, as Brian said, in Hebrews 10:25, it says, don't give up meeting together. That's a value for us. When we can meet together, we're going to. There is a time to where we want to be the best church for our city. And so by submitting to our authorities, right now, that's what we need to do. But we move into this other value of we honor personal choice and circumstances. Each individual has been impacted by this pandemic and the current situations that are going on around race and around violence in a different way. One of the things we want to realize that the perspective and the vantage point of individuals is very different. And so we want to have respect and dignity for the personal choices and circumstances. You know, the governor may open it up that it's fine for 50 people to gather in a room, but there are some individuals that may feel really uncomfortable with this because they have compromised immune systems or may be related to people. And so we want to honor that. You know, as we begin to expand, we honor the ones who greatly desire to get back together, and those who have some fear. You know, even within my family, we have the spectrum. There's those of just like, fling wide the doors. You know, they're like, you know, Psalm 24, fling wide the gates, let us all in. That's what's going on with them. And then other ones are like, you know, no, not yet. And so we're all going to have this, but the value of honoring people's personal choice and the circumstances, we really want to do that. And this last thing really impacts the pace in which we move, and that's flexible hospitality. And I was thinking about the passage of scripture in 1 Corinthians 10:23, where it says everything's permissible, but not everything's beneficial. And so there's going to come a time when it's permissible for us to have 50 people, but the constraints and the complexity of us gathering 50 people out of the 900 to 1,200 people of Cornerstone in our room is not going to be beneficial for everyone. It's going to be too complex. And so we want to be able to say, how do we lay out a plan so that gathering together, we don't lose the very best things that we love about gathering together, because we have all most likely gone to a grocery store and felt that experience of with a mask on and social distancing and waiting in line. And so one of the things we want to do is just go, how is that going to be when we move into our room at Cornerstone in South Lashley, that we want to do it in such a way that it actually doesn't, it isn't a diminishing return for what we love to do, that it isn't more distracting and discouraging than connecting and encouraging. And so we want to really weigh that as we move forward. And so we've got some plans, not plans, we've been preparing of how we're able to do that, but each one is continuing to go back to this. The church needs to meet together. We're picking this time. We submit to our authorities. We want to honor the dignity and the personal choices of others, and have this flexible hospitality that when we meet, it actually meets the needs and isn't so awkward and so uncomfortable and policing that it's detrimental. Back to you, Brian.
That last point really also is some vision for us, because we are really limited on how we can gather people together. And there are other factors that are going into our plan, like our building size. And the fact that we have a small building is really going to hinder what we're able to do in terms of gathering people in larger groups, because at some point in the future here, it's going to be a ratio number to your capacity, not necessarily a maximum number. Weather is going to affect things. We're not going to have an outside option into the fall if it goes that long. So, but you and me and all of us being hospitable is going to be a key part of being the church and serving our city and caring for one another. And so I know that many of you have already started having people together in your homes. There's been life groups that have some life groups are meeting together. Some are still doing Zoom. Some are just having outside hikes together. We're going to introduce here the idea of just watching the service together, watch parties on Sunday. But for those of you that feel comfortable, hospitality is one of the only tools that we have right now that allows us to gather. And it's hospitality in a decentralized way. And so that last value is really important. And as Aaron said, we don't want to create some environment at the building that feels so impersonal when we can keep doing personal things in homes. So, all right, saying that, we want to take you through the phases. And so Tim, we can go to that next slide. So we've already kind of gone through what you could call phase 1 and phase 2, but this is phase 1 of our reopening. And this is what we're encouraging we're saying we're allowed to do right now. And so on Monday, we received notice from the governor's office, and it went into full effect today. The third revisions of those guidelines are actually being sent probably during this meeting. But the number for gatherings in churches went up to 50 on Monday. But we felt like 50 people with masks and distancing just doesn't meet that flexible hospitality value that we have. And so what we're going to be encouraging during the month of June, if people are ready and would like to be together, is unofficial gatherings in homes for these watch parties or hangout nights. And so Aaron had the good idea a few weeks ago. We might start posting our service a little sooner on Saturday, so maybe people could watch our service Saturday night, have dinner together, or do brunch on Sunday morning. We'll be letting you know about that. But what the important things to communicate about phase one is the details and the expectations of how that in-home get-together goes. That's really up to the host and the participants. Mm-hmm. Because we know just practically people are gathering together in homes in different ways. And we really can't, we don't want to, and we really can't just keep track of how all of those things are happening. And so this is going to be completely up to you. You might be sitting there saying, I'm ready to have people in my home right now. And like we can at a restaurant, you can sit across the table and share a meal. But many of you may say, I am not ready, or even if I am ready, we need to stay in the backyard, or you may want to wear masks. All of those things we're asking you to work out with one another. And so this is where it's going to require some flexibility and really good communication. But as that happens, we want you to think hospitably. How can you gather in your parking lot, or not your parking lot, your driveway, and maybe have a happy hour or a discussion with your neighbors? There are many things that people have done. I know that we've all seen those things, but we are allowed to start getting together in homes. And those of you that are ready, we would love for that to happen. Some of the advantages of this, like if you gather on Sundays or to watch the service, you can pray together. We haven't been able to pray with people in person, and that will be, it's not a small thing. That's actually a big thing. And so you can have people in your home, you can discuss the message, you can pray together. And so phase one is really what we're going to be pushing for the month of June. Now, I tentatively say go to phase two. And I say tentatively because I think that this will be allowed sometime in July. We think that the gathering size will go up to around 100 people. At that point, we feel like it is worth putting on a live service. And so phase two is kind of a testing practice transition to phase three. And so, phase one, we're going to be in that phase for a month, but once we get to phase two, we could actually move to phase three pretty quickly once we feel comfortable. So during phase two, we're going to have a Thursday night live recorded service where there will be up to 100 people or whatever is allowed, 100 being that minimum number for us to do that, in the auditorium. We will follow all the in-person service health regulations that we've been given from the state and from the county. Right now, those include wearing masks and sitting at a distance. And so it will certainly seem very different. It will not feel like going back to the church that you left in March. It will not, I don't see any of that happening that way. As a leadership team, what we're going to do before we get to the place that we're ready to open that up just kind of to the 100 and go through the registration system, we're actually going to practice phase two before we go to phase two. And so at some point in late June, early July, we will start practicing phase two with 50 people or maybe smaller than that and move up. And then when we feel like we can safely gather that group of 100, and that could be mid-July, early July, we're gonna do it. And what that will do with that Thursday night service is it allows us to record the message and the music, but then it gives us time to do some post-production and put that together so that the church online option that we will continue to offer is still a high quality. And so I think most of you know that right now we're pre-recording the service during the week, putting it together, and that's why we're able to kind of give you a slicker service than we normally would have in the past. This option allows us to keep the best of that.
And with that, Brian, the goal is that we will eventually be moving to streaming on Sundays, but this gives us a little bit of time to have a turnaround and to practice all of the complexities of having people not just worship in the room, but also enter into the room, leave the room, all those type of things. And so This gives us a controlled, kind of controlled group to do things well, so that we aren't having to kind of learn from our mistakes, but that we're incremental. So.
One thing I forgot to mention is that what we're doing right now with Church Online, you could just call that phase 0, and phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3, they all get stacked upon each other. And so phase 1 won't be replaced by phase 2. It will be in addition to phase 1, and so on. And so we will continue to offer the Church Online option. We will continue to encourage gatherings in homes as those things be, as that's allowed. We will start adding this Thursday night service. As Aaron said, we're going to test it, make sure we can do a good job. That, one of the things, it's just kind of a necessary thing, is this idea of having a registration system. It seems really weird for people to register to go to church, but we're just going to have to do that. And so we have a group of people that are working on making that the kind of the most hospitable, fairest system we can create. So, let's say that we're in phase 2 for 3 or 4 weeks. We will let people register, most likely it'll be first come, first serve, but you only get to register for one of those 3 weeks, as we will try to let others have a chance to be in there for a live service. The other thing we don't know is we don't know what kind of demand we're going to have. So it's another way there is another thing we're going to be learning is just how comfortable all of us are to gathering together again, and just how attractive live worship sounds, even with some of the guidelines that we're going to be following. Aaron, anything else on phase 2?
Mm-mm.
All right, phase 3. If and when we feel like there is some increased demand, and we feel like we can handle these 100-person gatherings in the building, we will go to phase 3. And it would be very nice if we can do this sometime in August. Say that very loosely, but that would be nice. We will continue the Thursday night service. We will record that message and the worship, put that together for the Church Online video that gets released for Sunday morning. We will have an inside and outside option when we start those morning services. And so let's say we start with the 9 a.m. service. We'll be able to gather 100 people in the building for the 9 a.m. service, while also gathering 100 people outside at the same time. And so you can have same size gatherings happening simultaneously, as long as there's adequate distance between the gatherings. And we know that a lot of people will feel more comfortable with an outside option. And so, the way that could go is maybe worship in the auditorium is live, but the message is the recorded message. And maybe those of us that are speaking, we will be live outside in the tent with video worship, something like that. We'll have to come up with something creative to do that. Now, what's nice about phase 3 is a little more scalable, because we can just add more services as we need them as the summer goes on. And so if we see that there's a big demand for people to be together, we could add a 9 a.m. service, we could add a 10:30, we can add a 12 o'clock, and we can gather 200 people during those times. We will most likely have to have a registration system during that as well. We will follow what is required for in-person gatherings from the state and the county, just as we did in phase 2. And then in phase 3, we will begin to offer children's programs, and those children's programs will be, they will be brought out in phases as well. So where we end with our kids will not be where we begin. So we're going to give our children's ministry the same opportunity to kind of test things and phase things through. I can tell you right now, we're not getting a lot of guidance around how to do children's ministry. And so we're hoping for more of that as the summer goes on. Carrie, do you want to say anything about kids ministry and the challenges that it poses?
Oh, what challenges? I know a parent on here asked about childcare for phase 2. As we're watching, obviously, what the government's Colorado's telling us, but also just taking lead. We have a lot of incredible people that work with the school districts in our area. And so I've really just been in conversation with them. So as of right now, phase 2, we will be having kids can come, but they will need to be staying with parents. And you'll be coming to church as a family unit. I'm going to work real hard to do fun things so that your kids can have some quiet activities to keep themselves entertained during service. But and then phase 3 is when we will begin to open up kids. And we will have probably our own phase opening as we do that into phase 3. So obviously, as we all know, a lot of this is up in the air right now. But to go to the hospitality piece, it's really, really important to me that your kids feel at home and not like church feels really uncomfortable for them. So we're going to do our very best to make it happen. So.
You know, I want to remind you guys can ask some questions. I'm going to answer just a couple of them about the phasing here, and then we'll try to get to some more at the end. But Carrie just mentioned stuff with phase 2. Where we're at right now, even with the state, is they're asking if you gather people together, even that 50 number, you have to keep your kids with you. So it's really not even an option to do anything different. And we're anticipating July will be similar to that. Some of you asked, is there a maximum number in homes? So this is where there's some confusion, and a number of churches were sending feedback back to the governor's office. So one of you that asked the question mentioned that the gathering sizes are 10, but as of Monday, churches can now gather in groups of 50. And so because there is some confusion there, we're not officially saying anything about how you get together in homes. And that's why on that phase 1, it's really up to you and your discernment. I would be glad to give you, share the details if we're given some more guidance about that. There were a number of questions asked about meeting in homes. And hopefully we'll still get that. But I really don't have a great answer to that question because there's the 2 numbers, gatherings of 10. They're now allowing kids camps to gather in groups of 25 if they're outside. And we now have the 50 number for churches. And so there's some confusion there. We're trying to sort that out. Let me see. I had one more question about the phasing that,
There is a question about youth. I don't know, Brian, if you wanted to address that, but does the children programming include youth as well?
Gabe, you want to jump in there about what you guys are thinking? Students might be even more of a challenge than even kids. So,
yeah, I mean, seriously, we're kind of in the similar spot, which is waiting on more information. I mean, our hearts are breaking for our students, our middle school and high school students that are losing their minds right now, not having their people. But it's one of those things where with our 4th value talking about hospitality, we just don't know how we can pull off a meeting in person with kids being 6 feet apart from each other and forced to wear masks. So at this point, we're kind of waiting for some of those restrictions to kind of loosen up before we make any decisions on meeting in person. So right now we've just decided to continue to push forward with our Zoom parties on Tuesday and Sunday nights. And then as soon as we feel like we could have small groups meet together in a hospitable way, where we're not yelling at students to not sit on each other's laps and, you know, do what they're going to do, then we'll kind of move forward with meeting in person. One thing to think about, I know we've had lots of questions about camp. And so we are looking into some options. Once again, if it's possible in like maybe the first week or the second week of August to do some type of camp. It might be really simplified. It might be 3 days as opposed to, 10 days like we've done in the past. But we want to do a camp this summer. But once again, we're not going to make any promises and then have to say, just kidding. We're canceling camp a second time this summer. So it's been really, really difficult. Not only, like Aaron said, there are no plans. As information comes out, we're trying our best to adjust, but we want, as Brian said, we want to get back together as soon as we can. And so, and also we honor those parents that are like, hey, my kids are losing their mind. Like their emotional and mental health is just important to me than their, as is their physical health. You know, like I want them to meet with their friends and, you know, with other leaders. So some parents are already doing that, which we respect. And we also respect the parents who are like, nope, not yet. We don't want you hanging out because you have, you know, some type of physical condition. So anyways, long story short, there are no answers. And I think that's the frustrating thing, but as soon as we can get them together, we will.
That's a great example of why the values are going to be so helpful for us as we're limited in making our decisions, because we really can't plan right now. We can't make promises, but we're moving ahead, and really the information that we're given is good information for like a month, and then it has to change again. So those are some good questions. Team, did I leave anything out for phase 3 that needs to be mentioned?
A couple of the questions on there, and this maybe we'll get to the end. One of the things is just with regulations and masks. Did you speak to that, Brian?
No.
That, well, you know, as far as we know right now, and there's continual changes, things, masks will be required. Social distancing of 6 feet at least will be required. So many feet from the stage will be required. Temperatures are not required to be taken upon entering. You know, that's a different, some businesses may want to do that. But we'll be, you know, just to answer that, in all of the phases that we're in, we will be adhering to the regulations for those, you know. So some of that is, you know, the what you have to wear, you know, in that, a lot of questions about singing. And that's one of the reasons we go back to that flexible hospitality is they're saying you wear a mask and you can't sing. Well, that's going to really change our services. So we're working with that, but we will adhere to the regulations that the state is giving us for all those phases.
And the distancing and the masks, I would anticipate some version of that certainly through July. At some point, we're going to get that ratio. I can tell you that in the governor's call today, they actually have said masks are not required, but highly recommended. But this is an example of how things are complicated. Boulder County is requiring masks. And so we're having to go to a couple different sources on that. All right, we'll have some more time for questions, and we're gonna give you a Dream Boulder update here. But I really wanna just come through really clear that your openness with your home, your backyard, your driveway, it's absolutely essential this summer. And if you think about what everyone's just been through, we've been told to stay away from people, keep your door shut, wear a mask. I mean, a lot of people haven't seen a smile from someone else except through a video screen. The amount of screaming that's taking place on the Louisville trails is off the charts, yelling at people. I mean, there's just a lot of, you know, and then we have the race stuff going on that's so terrible and sad, and we're going to address that this Sunday again. But there's just a lot of things that are making people not seem like people, and we're not able to connect and enjoy one another. And so your hospitality actually is medicine for that right now. And so I wish we could share, like, here's where we're going this summer, but where we're going is that God's going to really use each of our homes and our families as we feel comfortable to open ourselves up and connect with people. And I can tell you that we've had a number of new people watching church online. So many of your neighbors and people in our community that would never come to church are. Some of you know who those people are. Reach out to them, connect, watch a service together in your home, pray for them. There are a number of things that you can do that God can use during this time. And so, you know, a lot of people are focusing on a lot of times what we can't do, but there are tremendous things that we can do. And hospitality right now will shine. It will certainly be an effective venue or avenue to share the gospel and God's love for people. So I want to encourage you and push you in that direction to be as hospitable as you can. All right. We got a little video that we put together for Dream Boulder update, and then we'll get to some more of those questions that you guys have been posting. Again, you can post a question in the Q&A. Go for it, Tim.
Hello Cornerstone, it's Dan here, and I want to give you a quick update on the status of our building project and where we're at in the process with Dream Boulder. It started for us in March of 2019, so we are just over a year into the process, and I know it's felt like 37 years ago. But we've hit the normal hurdles that happen in most endeavors of this size. The design has gone through a lot of changes based on the code of Boulder County. Our budget has been adjusted because of water that flows underneath our soil here at Cornerstone, and the schedule has been delayed by numerous things with our city and currently from the coronavirus. All that being said, we are finally seeing light at the end of the tunnel. And if things go smoothly from this point on, we hope to have a building permit submitted during the summer, and we hope to knock down the east side of our building in the fall. I want to give you some perspective of what we could be looking at the beginning of next year. So picture this. A brand new auditorium on the east side of our building. This new auditorium has the look and feel of a classic theater with an amazing mezzanine, and the whole space can seat about 600 people. You can see another structure in the rendering that we lovingly call the middle section. And it has a great overhang that helps define our space. This middle section will house our new bathrooms, a vestibule that takes us into our new auditorium, and stairs that take us downstairs to our new space for students and adults. Once you're downstairs, you will find 3 new breakout rooms that flank an incredible social space for students and a dedicated worship space for them to gather. It takes up the entire footprint of the auditorium above it, so their space will increase dramatically. You will also be able to go upstairs in the middle section to enter the mezzanine of our new auditorium. On the back side of the mezzanine, you will notice a room with windows to the west and the south. This is a dedicated room that we want to set aside for prayer. Let's walk through our new entrance into our brand new lobby. All right, so we got big plans for this place. We're going to knock out this wall. It's going to take you to the courtyard. Up here, we're going to have our offices facing the Flatirons. Over here, we're going to move to our kids' space and our new check-in. There's a sweet new covered entrance that greets you as you walk in, and this is where you will find our front door. There's an amazing fireplace to gather around on this wall. There's room for our whole church family to gather and hang out between services. And that wall will lead to our new bathrooms. And the other side of the wall leads to the new auditorium. Our offices will start where the balcony currently begins, and we're adding windows to the west wall so we can check out the Flatirons. We've opened up 2 places in our walls that lead you to the courtyard, and the other takes you to our kids' check-in space. I know I glossed over the bathrooms earlier, but let me remind you of our current situation. This green color is not custom. I believe it's a creative science project, and our new bathrooms will not have any poles that help hold up the sink. These current bathrooms are getting knocked down and destroyed and being replaced by multiple, beautiful, spacious, fantastic stalls. A land flowing with water and porcelain. Can I get an amen? Kids, we definitely did not forget about you in this design process. We created a great new check-in area for parents, beautiful new classrooms on both levels, and large spaces that will allow everyone to come together for worship, teaching, and fun. Our classrooms are just waiting for you kids to come back and fill them up. And kids, do you remember the amount of grass you used to play on? 9:30. Here I come. Oh, found you, Gabe. Now you have this entire front yard to play and have fun. Where we're standing now is going to be all hardscaped with fire pits and sitting areas, and then this entire parking lot right here is going to be grass lined with trees and a fence. It's going to be amazing. Gabe, go along. I know it's hard to picture things fully back to normal with us still in this safer at home order, but there's coming a day very soon when we are all going to be back together and worshiping together, and I just cannot wait. So please be in prayer for us as we're meeting with the city, going after permits and starting construction. We could really use the prayer. Stay classy, Cornerstone.
All right, well, Brian.
Nicely done, Dan.
Yeah.
Stay classy, Boulder.
Yeah. So we can do some questions here. I want to answer one of the first ones that came up. Carrie, what was the question about the loan?
Yeah, give me 1 second, sorry. If we are in a stable position financially, why did we get a government loan?
Very good question. Well, when we applied for the loan, it was mid-April, and we did not know where we would be at the time. And the sentiment behind that loan was to keep employees employed at the level that we were at. And we certainly valued that. And we are hoping, even with potential kind of downturns with the economy, which we are expecting, that we will not have to do that. And so whether the loan was going to help us just make it through the summer or the rest of the year, we didn't have a moral or spiritual objection to it. Yost, you want to add anything to that?
No, I just think what you said, right? When we applied, which was actually more like the beginning of April, we just didn't know, and we thought it was prudent. Our bank actually encouraged us to do this, and you know, like we mentioned, we're still in a good shape. You know, our giving's come down a little, and I think we still have probably some challenges ahead for many of us, right? It's just hard to say how the economy is going to go. So I think we just felt like it was a wise thing to do, and we're gonna, you know, use it the way we were asked to help keep people employed right at the church, and use it for payroll that way, and hope that it'll just help extend the amount of time that we don't really have to make further cuts or make those kind of hard decisions.
You know, if I could jump in, if I might be wrong about this, but it's my understanding that if we don't let any employees go, which we don't have to do because of this loan, we don't have to repay that money as well, correct?
That is correct.
Right.
Yeah, that was one of the requirements. And just this week, they extended the time frame in which we're allowed to use those money from 8 weeks now to, I think, 24 weeks. So yeah, again, you're right, Gene. It was just a way to help.
Yeah, so we're using the terminology loan because that's what it is, but it really doesn't need to be repaid. We're not on the hook to pay it back.
Carrie, what else we have?
We had a few questions. I know you mentioned this, but maybe we just to circle back, because a few people asked, what's the maximum number allowed for in-home watch parties? So during phase 1, what's our recommendation on group size? And did the state recommend, is it, because right now we know the state's recommending that it remains at 10 people in home.
Yes. So we have not heard back. So we've asked, and we have a way of offering feedback and getting questions to the governor's office. So there are 3 numbers right now that actually could work. So there's the 10 number. There you could actually gather 25 children in your backyard with distancing, with masks on, such as the day camp and summer camp rules that are happening. And then there's also the 50 number in churches. And so I don't really have an answer for that. I will share that when we hear it. And we're not the only church asking that question, because we already know that people are gathering together in homes, but what is officially required is uncertain. That's one reason phase 1, it's really on all of your initiative. We are not doing anything official as Cornerstone. We're just encouraging, as you're ready, getting people together in your home. So that's the best I can answer that question right now.
Yeah, just a question about Thursday nights. Why are we doing Thursday nights? Why are we going to start with in person on Thursday nights instead of Sunday mornings?
Yes, the reason that we're doing that is it gives us enough time to be able to produce the service and upload it for Sundays. And that gives us a little bit of time. Also keeping that option for the Sunday streaming in the premiere and then the on demand. And that it just closes the gap for us. It gives us you know, not to go into all the fun details, but with editing and rendering and uploading and all of that fun stuff, it takes hours for that to be able to happen. Gives us that turnaround time so that Sunday morning it's ready to go. And we will continue to work and hopefully closing the distance on being able by a certain date to do those completely streamed live. But that's why Thursday.
Aaron, would there be a live audience on Sunday as well, watching the recording?
It would be when we go to phase 3, there will be live audience, and there'll also most likely be live worship in one area and live preaching in another area.
Mm-hmm. We have a question. It's a good question. Are all the other churches in the area doing similar things? And I can say we are. Where it will begin to look different is when the gathering capacity increases based on room capacity. So this week, a number of us shared kind of our reopening plans. Some of the smaller churches are now doing live services with 50 people. Some of them only, the church plants have 100, so they could do 2 services and invite their whole church in. We've determined, like Calvary and First Pres and Ascent, that 50 is just not a number that we feel like works for us to do a in-person gathering. So there's similar things there. During June, almost all the churches are pushing together and getting together in homes, whether it's their small groups, life groups, or watching the service together. But where it will get different is later in the summer, and this is where it's going to hurt us the most because we are a pretty big church in a little building. Let's say they say you can put half the people in your room of normal capacity. Our room holds about 380 people, and I doubt they'll let us put half, but even if they did, we could get 190 in there. So that is going to create challenges for us. And so if something like that continues through the fall, we may have to do more than 3 services between maybe a Thursday and Sunday. And so the other church, some of the other churches, I was talking to Luke Holmbrecht at Vine Life. They got a great big auditorium, and once the number goes to 100, they can basically get their whole church in there with 2 or 3 services. So we're not in that boat. So we wish our building was done. We are going to be so excited when it is someday. Carrie, maybe 1 or 2 others?
Yeah, there's a couple questions on here about parking for the new building. How will the new building plan affect parking? Will we lose spaces?
Hey, Brian, one other thing. Brian, we had an important question about the bagels and coffee as well. Do you want me to get the bagel lady to answer that?
No. If you could get Nick Tram and the bagel lady, I think all 117 people will be much happier. The Kinsleys will be bringing them to your home.
Yes,
that's what's happening.
All right.
Thank you for the question. We feel honored. My wife, the bagel lady, feels honored.
Most likely, bagels and popcorn will not come back in phase 3, but coffee will probably be allowed. So, Dan, go for it.
The parking question?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to lose some spots. There's a few things that had to happen. Our setback was grandfathered in at the beginning of our property because of where South Lashley came in. That didn't used to exist. So the setbacks, we couldn't have any of those parking spots up to on the west side of our property. So that's all turning into grass, which is going to be fantastic for the kids. A lot of great place to play. But we are going to lose all those parking spots. And in our current parking, they're going to maximize all of what we have and restripe. But there's also, like, we're breaking a lot of code when it comes to how many spaces you can have without an island and things like that. So those things are going to, we're going to have a lot more islands in the parking lot and things of that nature. I'm in conversations with CenturyLink, which is our neighbor to the south. And we're talking about the possibility of being able to do like a lease share type of program where we could get some possible spots from them and just kind of walk over to our property. There's a gate that allows us to do that. So parking, Boulder, interestingly enough, like, we're way over what we need. for Boulder, the city, to pass our ordinance. They want everyone to like ride bikes to church. So if everyone wants to start riding bikes, we're gonna have huge bike racks, but less parking. But we're totally fine as far as the code goes and all of that. But yeah, parking will be fun.
All right, I'm gonna try to answer 2 questions together, and then we'll wrap up. And then I'll mention something that's happening this Saturday. Involves another question unrelated to things we shared tonight. So some of you have asked what budget things did we cut? We had what we increased is we had to increase some of our staff around production and had to buy equipment like I don't know, these things that allow you to stream and cameras, and we bought a teleprompter so that Aaron's next video doesn't take 29 takes. Yeah.
It's on, Carly.
And so we bought some of that. It's actually relatively not that expensive. We actually bought some more stage lights, but those stage lights actually came out of the Dream Boulder budget that we've already been budgeting for new AVL. So we're actually going to start putting some new AVL gear in our current room that will be a part of the new room when that happens. And so, but the things we cut some ministry spending, and which was easy to do because we weren't gathering together. Bagels and coffee actually cost a lot. And we just cut all unnecessary spending, especially those first 4 weeks, 6 weeks, that allowed there to be some savings. And then we have some other staff that were kind of Sunday morning hourly staff, and they were not working during that time. And so that's where most of that savings came from. So the majority of our budget still goes to salary, all the payroll stuff, that kind of thing. And so we have some room to cut budget before we actually have to start doing stuff with personnel. All right, I want to mention one more thing. Andy had a question. Do we know of anything that's going on around the political or the racial unrest and the stuff that's happening in the country? Dan, did we put that prayer or that march on Facebook yet?
We did not. I am posting that tomorrow.
Okay. So on Saturday, I think it's at 9 or 10 a.m. At Pearl Street, there's going to be a peaceful march. 10 o'clock, Gene?
Yes.
Okay. And a number of the Boulder churches are sharing it, and there'll be a number of people there participating. I'm going to be out of town, or I would be there, but I know some of the group right here and some of our other staff will be there. And so we're just now finding out about that. I can tell you that most of the churches around are trying to, well, actually I should say we're all responding a little bit different. We're going to spend a lot of time on Sunday talking about this and having some moments during communion, but we want to encourage your activity as a way to respond and to stand with people right now. And so we have never promoted a march before that I'm aware of. So this is new for us, but we believe it's appropriate. So that will be Saturday at Pearl Street. There'll be a number of churches there.
Hey, Andy, too, I'm interested in doing something even beyond that. So if you're interested in maybe collaborating on that, let's get together and talk about it, okay?
All right, everybody, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap us up. I'm going to pray. If you'd like to hang around and we can keep going to questions, we can. But I'm going to officially end us, but then we're going to hang around and keep answering questions that you have. So we don't want to forget. If you've asked a question and we haven't got to it because we're getting a bunch submitted again, and Carrie can get it to me. But I want to pray and let those of you that are ready to go. So, Father God, we thank you for this time to be together. We thank you for your Spirit that binds our hearts together. You bridge distance, and you also bridge time. And we thank you for our church family. We thank you that this is a source of life and joy, even during a time of frustration, confusion, and sadness. And so we do want to pray for our church. We pray that you would keep our community strong. We pray that relationships would strengthen during this time. I pray that you would use the witness of every person on this call to point people towards you, Jesus, towards your love, your justice, your salvation. And then lastly, Lord, we do pray for our country. We pray against just the terrible things that we've been reminded of racism and inequality and all the ways that people are treated in a way that they shouldn't. We ask that it would change. And I pray that you would galvanize us, that we would find momentum together to live out this righteous anger, and that you would funnel that into something productive. And so we pray for our city. And Lord, our heart is that our church would be a blessing to our city. And so not just in this issue, but all of them. But I pray right now as we deal with just a difficult time in our country, that our church would be a light. So thank you for everyone here and all the ways that they do that. And we love you, and we look forward to being together again, and never ever doing a summer vision night over Zoom. I look forward to that. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Amen.
So good night, everybody. You're welcome to, again, you're welcome to stay and keep doing questions, and we're just going to keep going here while other people are dropping out. So Carrie, you got another question?
Inquiring minds want to know when you started saying shine bright, Brian.
Is that Dan Gleisner? Because he's sending me some other questions on my phone. He asked me if
I'm an incredible anonymous person, and I just really love it.
All right, we should go serious, but
sorry,
I'm shining bright right now.
I mean, maybe you guys can look, but I know one question that got brought up was just for individuals that might feel uncomfortable in the beginning of the phases, that having an outside option is important. And I was thinking in my head outside, but also like, just to reiterate that our live streaming will continue to happen. Mm-hmm. So that's another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the outside will be nice. I mean, right now the way you do outside is people have to bring their own chairs. We have to sit 6 feet apart, but we're looking at getting tents so there can be some shade and make that as comfortable as possible. While, you know, and it certainly is more comfortable for some people.
I mean, I think we covered. Well, let me see if maybe we just got another one. Oh, will there be any women's Bible studies available online in the summer or fall?
I know what I do know is that some of the women's groups are continuing to meet. I'm not sure if there's going to be an organized, everyone's doing the same Bible study. I'm not aware of that, but we can find that out and post it. People texting me.
Jean, maybe we can talk about, there was a question just about Saturday for those that are going, if we would have a meetup spot at Cornerstone. So maybe that's something that we can discuss.
Okay.
Yeah, just to reiterate, I found the information on that this Saturday. It's Saturday, 10 a.m. Boulder Courthouse is the primary meeting space for that. We can throw that in the chat box here for you too.
We'll put those details up on social media quick. Either you said tomorrow, Dan?
Yeah, and we're gonna have a link to it on the website.
Okay.
Just to jump back to the women's question, they can join existing small groups, and they're also going to be starting a new book study in July. So we'll be getting that information out through our different communication ways. So.
I think we're just checking. Okay. People are asking about worship, adding people to the worship teams right now. It's going to be a slow rollout of, as we continue to invite new people that are part of the teams to re-enter into that. We've had, because we've been together with each other, just with that amount of social distancing and things like that. And so we'll continue to work on that to be integrating more people, and there'll be rollout with that. I'll be contacting the worship ministries on the side about that.
Brian Duper asked how they can support us. He said, you all have been working really hard in supporting the community. Thank you. And how can we support you?
Thank you, Brian.
I like that.
What was that, Gene?
We'd all like to go to Hawaii. Without our kids, right? Without your kids.
Yeah, Dupra, can you arrange a Hawaii trip?
I was supposed to be in Kauai right now. Don't bring it up.
I think, with that, prayer, I think feedback in a way that it's offering ideas. I think one of the biggest thing is assume the best. We're working hard. And we have joked that we're doing unprecedented things that 50% of the people don't necessarily agree with. And so with that being said, one of the greatest things is to pray, offer insight, and then also, have grace. Have grace with us.
Yeah, that's all helpful. Our staff, we've actually kind of been staggering time off because we actually have started hitting some burnout. Gabe will never say this, but we're very sad for him and Shelby that their sabbaticals ruined this summer. He certainly has earned it, and so you can shower him with gifts and just tell him how wonderful he is, because yeah, we certainly believe that, and that's a real loss that he's not going to get a sabbatical, because sabbaticals are rewards, but more than rewards, they're an investment in the next 7 years. And so we need to make sure Gabe gets away and gets kind of replenished. So you can pray for that.
I think we covered most things.
It's all of them.
I think so, unless someone
Dan
else.
Gleisner, I do not wear Gucci. This is Quicksilver. You know me better than that.
Thank you, everybody. This has been awesome.
All right.
Appreciate it. Tim, thanks for hosting this and putting it together.
Good job, Timmy.
I feel honored that we had over 120 people, 30 people.
Yeah.
This is it. We miss you all so much. So this was a really sweet thing to know we were together tonight. So
how many did we have, Carrie?
I think we had over 130.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
130 things logged in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's still.
That's the technical term.
Right.
Wow. Hey, this is how we should have done the old members meetings. Those things were horrible.
I think we should sign off before Brian.
Brian, stop while you're ahead, please.
And thank you all for joining. Thank you all for joining. We love you. Blessings.
Guys.
Shine bright.
Shine bright.
I'm shutting this down. Goodbye, everybody. Good night.
Good night.